Republic Act 8371, also known as the Indigenous People Right Act of 1997 or IPRA, is a law in the Philippines that seeks to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous peoples, or ICCS or IPs. Republic Act number 8371, a landmark legislation in the Philippines aiming to uplift in the rights and welfare of the country in indigenous communities. Who are the Philippine indigenous people? 1. Negritos, Agta, and Tibuli. First, we tackle about the Negro or Negrito is used to describe several ethnic groups in the Philippines and other parts of Southeast Asia that have distinct physical characteristics such as dark skin and small stature. They are considered the earliest inhabitants of the Philippines. Negritos are hunter-gatherers relying on forest resources for food, shelter, and tools. Their culture is rich with oral traditions and including stories, songs, and dances. Second, the Tibuli. The Tibuli are an indigenous group primarily residing in the highlands of South Cotabato in Mindanao, Philippines. The Tibuli are known for their elaborate traditional costumes and brass jewelry. They practice slash and burn agriculture, fishing, and hunting. Lastly, the Agta. The Agta, also known as Dumagat or Aita, in some regions are an indigenous group in the Philippines known for their semi-nomadic lifestyle and distinct physical characteristics similar to those of the Negrito groups. The Agta are hunter-gatherers, but many have also adopted fishing and agriculture and trading.
Now let's proceed to ancestral domains. Ancestral domains refers to the land, territories, and resources that indigenous peoples have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used and possessed. The ancestral domain is not just a piece of land, but it holds significant cultural, spiritual, and historical values for the indigenous communities. Ancestral land is not just a resource to be exploited, but a sacred space that is intimately connected to the identity and well-being of the indigenous communities. The CADT, or the Certificate of Ancestral Domain Title, is a legal document issued by the Philippines government that grants ownership rights to the indigenous communities over their ancestral lands. This recognitions of their historical and cultural ties to the land provides them with legal protection from aggression and exploitation. CADT is an important tool for indigenous peoples to protect and defend their rights to their ancestral lands. Once promulgated, the CADT gives indigenous communities the exclusive right to manage, protect, and develop their ancestral lands according to their customs and traditions. They recognize the historical and cultural ties that indigenous communities have to their land and give them recognition and legal protection.
Meaning and concept. So, first one is Certificate of Ancestral Land. CALT or Certificate of Ancestral Land Title refers to a title formally recognizing the rights of IPS over the ancestral lands. Second one is Native Title. Native title is often described as a bundle of rights in land, meaning a collection of rights. These rights may include the right to camp, hunt, use water, hold meetings, perform ceremony, and protect cultural sites. Third one is concept of ownership. Ownership is the legal right to use, possess, and give away a thing. Ownership can be tangible, such as personal property and land, or it can be of intangible things such as intellectual property rights. Lastly, sustainable tradition resources rights. Rights of ICCS or IPS to sustainably use, manage, protect, and conserve a land, air, water, and minerals. plants, animals, and other organisms collecting fishing and hunting grounds, and other areas of economic, ceremonial, and aesthetic value accordance with their indigenous knowledge, beliefs, system, and practices. Indigenous community maintain their traditional culture and lifestyle are often a major source of attraction for international and local tourists alike and can significantly influence a destination's competitiveness. So, indigenous people maintain their traditional culture and lifestyle for several interrelated reasons. The first one is cultural identity and continuity. Traditional culture is a vital part of their identity, connecting them to the ancestors and heritage. Maintaining these practices ensures the continuity of their cultural narratives and community cohesion. Second is connection to land. Many indigenous cultures have a deep spiritual and physical connection to their ancestral lands. Their traditional lifestyle are often revolve around sustainable practices that are in harmony with the environment, which is crucial for their survival and well-being. Next is knowledge preservation. Indigenous practices often embody centuries-old knowledge system, including medicinal practices, agriculture techniques, and ecological wisdom. Preserving these traditions helps to maintain this valuable knowledge. The next one is resistance to assimilation. Maintaining traditional culture can be a form of resistance against assimilation, pressures from dominant societies. It is a way to assert the rights, autonomy, and distinct identity in the face of external influences and historical injustice. Next one is the community and social structure. Traditional practices and lifestyle are often closely tied to the social structure and governance system within indigenous community. They reinforce social bonds, communal responsibility, and collective decision-making processes. Next is spiritual beliefs. Many indigenous cultures have spiritual beliefs and rituals that are integral to their worldview. These practices are often inseparable from their daily lives and provide a sense of purpose and connection to the cosmos. Next is health and well-being. Traditional diets, lifestyle, and medicinal practices are often better suited to the health needs of indigenous people compared to the Western alternatives. They offer a holistic approach to health that incorporates physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Lastly is legal and political recognition. In some cases, maintaining traditional lifestyle is also linked to legal and political recognition of the indigenous rights and land claims. But overall, the preservation of traditional culture and lifestyle is essential for the survival, dignity, and autonomy of indigenous peoples. It also allows them to maintain their unique identity, sustain their communities, and navigate the challenges posed by modernity and globalization.
Republic Act Number 8371 of the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 provides a detailed enumeration of the rights of indigenous peoples concerning their ancestral domains and lands. The Act recognizes the comprehensive scope of these ancestral territories encompasses not only land but also water, bodies, and other significant areas. Key provisions include recognition of ancestral domains and lands. Ancestral domains, these include lands, inland waters, coastal areas, and natural resources therein held under a claim of our ownership. occupied or possessed by IPs by themselves or to their ancestors. Communally or individually, the law recognizes the ancestral domains and IP as private but community property which they have rights to develop, control, and use. Ancestral lands refers to lands occupied, possessed, and utilized by individuals, families, and clans who are member of the IPS since time immemorial. Scope of ancestral territories, lands and water bodies. The law covers not only the physical land but also includes rivers, lakes, seas, and others body of water that are integral to the IPS culture and livelihood. Sacred places, areas of cultural and spiritual significance such as burial grounds, ceremonial sites, and other sacred places are protected under the law. Traditional hunting and fishing grounds, recognizing the importance of traditional place practices, the law practice hunting, fishing, and gathering areas that IPS have traditionally used and relied upon for their subsistence and cultural practices.
Mabuhay, I am Elaine and I was tasked to discuss the rights to ancestral domains that includes the right of ownership. This is the right to develop lands and natural resources. This refers to the legal and ethical entitlements of individuals, communities, corporations, or governments to use, manage, and benefit from land and natural resources within a specified jurisdiction. This right is often subject to regulations and laws that aim to balance economic development with environmental protection, social justice, and the rights of indigenous peoples. Next is the right to benefit and share profits from the allocation and utilization of natural areas. And it simply means that the entitlements that individuals, communities, or entities have to receive economic or other advantages derived from the use, management, or conservation of natural resources and environments. This concept is often tied to principles of equity, sustainability, and fair distribution of resources. It can be applied in various contexts. And the third is the right to negotiate the terms and conditions for the exploration of natural resources in the areas to ensure ecological, environmental protection, and conservation measures. It says that the right to negotiate the terms and conditions for the exploration of natural resources in an area is crucial for ensuring ecological and environmental protection. This right empowers stakeholders, including local communities, governments, and environmental groups, to set regulations that safeguard biodiversity, prevent pollution, and promote sustainable use of resources. It involves establishing conservation measures, conducting environmental impact assessments, and implementing practices that minimize ecological damage, thereby balancing economic interests with the imperative to protect and preserve natural ecosystems for future generations. And then the fourth right is the right to an informed and intelligent participation in the formulation and implementation of any project that will affect or impact upon the ancestral domains. And in this right, it says that it ensures the indigenous communities are fully aware of and actively involved in decision-making processes. This right mandates that these communities receive comprehensive information about the projects, understand potential impacts, and have the opportunity to express their views and influence outcomes. It aims to protect their cultural heritage, land rights, and well-being by ensuring their consent and engagement in developments affecting their ancestral territories. And the fifth right is the right to stay in their ancestral domains except in certain situations where they need to be relocated. It means that the right to stay in their ancestral domains refers to the legal and human rights of indigenous peoples to reside on and maintain their traditional lands. These rights are protected to ensure the preservation of their culture, traditions, and way of life. However, exceptions exist where relocation may be necessary, typically in situations involving national security, critical public infrastructure projects, or natural disasters. Even in these cases, relocations must be conducted in a manner that respects their rights and involves their free, prior, and informed consent. And lastly, the right to regulate the entry of migrants into the domains. In the tourism industry, the indigenous people's participation in conservation programs and tourism development processes is a function of their concerns, interests, and perceptions of these conservation programs and tourism development impacts. It says here that governments have the right to regulate the entry of migrants into their territories, ensuring that immigration policies align with national interests, security, and economic needs. In the tourism industry, the participation of indigenous people in conservation programs and tourism development is crucial. This involvement hinges on addressing their concerns, interests, and perceptions, ensuring that such programs are respectful, beneficial, and sustainable, thereby fostering a balanced relationship between tourism growth and indigenous welfare.